Hello, I'm Darren Magee and welcome to my Mental Health Information and Awareness channel. Now, today's topic is on what is something of a buzz term in psychology at the moment. What is the Dark Triad? Now, if you find this video helpful, if you like it, please check out my other videos on mental health related topics and please consider subscribing to my channel. Now, the Dark Triad. Now, that's a theory that there are three specific personality traits that come together to cause difficulties. Now, those three being psychopathy, narcissism, and machiavellianism. Now, the traits associated with psychopathy include a lack of empathy and a lack of remorse, being antisocial behavior, callousness, being volatile and manipulative. Narcissism, now that has different aspects to it, and I've covered videos on narcissism before if you want to check those out, but there's grandiose or the overt. Now the characteristics of that include being vain, a lot of vanity, sense of entitlement, a sense of superiority, dominance, being resistant to criticism. But there's also the vulnerable or the covert. Now those characteristics include being sensitive to criticism, guilt-tripping others, distrusting others, and shyness. Now with the Dark Triad, most of the researchers went into the grandiose narcissism components, okay? But regardless of the narcissism, all shades of it, there is that pursuit of ego gratification as well as a lack of empathy. With Machiavellianism, what we see is manipulation, being goal-orientated and the ability to control impulsive behaviour. But there's also cynicism and there's also a lack of or questionable morality. Now, although narcissism and psychopathy can be a clinical diagnosis, in the Dark Triad, these are more subclinical. Now, what that means is that there are traits, there can be very strong traits from these different personality types, but there is not enough to make a diagnosis for a specific personality disorder. It's more a case of these different aspects from the different personality types merging. And remember, with personality disorders, there is a spectrum or a continuum, whatever term you want to use, which means there's a lot of different traits, a lot of different types, and a lot of different levels of severity as these different aspects merge. I think it's also important to recognize that narcissism often comes from a sense of insecurity, whereas the other two, psychopathy and Machiavellianism, they may have genetic components. But whenever these aspects merge, whenever they come together, these different traits, the common factors are disagreeableness, being antagonistic, argumentative, and having a high degree of self-interest. So what does this look like? Well, common behaviours include being quite focused on goals, being goal-orientated, but more in a scheming kind of way. In the workplace, for example, it's someone who uses rules to dominate and to bully. Any antisocial behaviour may be more what you would call white collar, as opposed to openly violent and aggressive, though at times it can be. They tend to charm their way to the top, as opposed to making real connections. They cheat, they plagiarise, they take credit for other people's work, as opposed to actually putting the work in themselves. Now, not all the time, but more often than not, they tend to make very poor leaders when they do get those positions of responsibility. Because as leaders, they tend to control through dominance and fear as opposed to any kind of positive reinforcement or constructive criticism. And this often leads to poor productivity and a high turnover of staff. What I've heard said, anecdotally, what I've heard said in some cases is it's the company that just keeps hiring the wrong people. Nothing to do with the manager. In personal relationships, they will be very charming, very beguiling, at first at least. They always want to give a positive first impression and often mimic other people's behaviours in order to fit. And a lot of the time, they say things that they know the other person wants to hear in order to be liked. It's if you will, the manipulation has already begun, and they start to tell more and more lies. They exhibit unkind humour. They will show distress at anything the other person in that relationship does or has that they don't have or they don't like. They continually cross boundaries. Now, at first, it's a little bit at a time until the other person realises it's like they have no boundaries whatsoever. And a common tactic is the people in the Dark Triad, they tend to grind others down to get what they want. They don't have a lot of insight, so they're not able to reason or bring someone round to their way of thinking through dialogue and logic. It's just about grinding people down in order to get what they want. As I've already said, generally they will be very argumentative, very judgmental. They will pour scorn on almost everything, and they will get angry or upset very easily. Now, although this can be explosive, it can also involve sulking, given the silent treatment. So they can be bullies. They can be bullies either through intimidation or threat, or by, say, spreading malicious rumours. They can use unnecessary and unkind criticism. They can often threaten another person with the consequences of their behaviour, their reaction at the way they're being treated. Because all three personality types are prone to cheating, they will not only just cheat on their partners, they may even steal from work because they lack honesty, sincerity, and faithfulness and a sense of fairness. They can be very deceptive. The strange thing is now, although the lies they tell are intentional, I don't think the dishonesty is intentional. I think it's more about self-deception. Because, in other words, what I'm trying to say is they tend to believe their own lies. It's just that they want everyone else to believe those lies as well. And the lack of empathy that all three personality types have tends to come across as them being callous. Now, the people with psychopathic traits, they tend to enjoy seeing fear in others. But with both narcissism and psychopathy, people with those kind of traits, they enjoy seeing anger in others. Now, Machiavellians, they're very good at spotting emotional responses. They're very good at reading people. But they use that in a way to manipulate the people. Now, they will manipulate regardless of the damaging or hurtful effect that they have or whatever it is they inflict. They will always try to get away with whatever they can get away with. And once they've done that, they will push to see what else they can get away with. Now, these days, with there being so much information out there on YouTube, on the internet, articles written and so on, and a lot of people are making videos, writing stuff about narcissists and narcissism and so on, it's not uncommon for someone who's been in a difficult, toxic, abusive relationship or has come out of a relationship to believe that their partner or their ex-partner was a narcissist. Now, I'm not saying that they weren't. But remember, we're talking about a spectrum here. We're talking about different shades here, and we are talking about sometimes a specific personality disorder diagnosis. Sometimes there are very strong traits of different things that come together. The narcissism, the psychopathy, the machiavellianism. More often than not, I think we're dealing with someone on the Dark Triad as opposed to that specific personality disorder. So that's the Dark Triad. Now, there's a lot of things I haven't covered. So, as always, please feel free to use the comment box below on any of your experiences, beliefs, or even queries. I do like reading your comments and responding when I can. If you like this video, if you found it helpful, please consider subscribing to my channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.